Good evening, Facebook Nation. Wow, what a couple weeks here. Welcome to yet another episode of Did You Hire Him Dead or Kill Him After You Got Him? I'm your host, Anthony Santangelo, National Sales Recruiter and Trainer, AutoMax Recruiting and Training. It's been a little bit of a tough week and a half, 2 weeks, Facebook Nation. There's been a lot going on in this world, a lot going on in the carnistry, which has really been difficult. And I was telling Ernie Kaspowitz earlier today, our general manager and partner in AutoMax, I almost considered not doing a show tonight. And I said, wait a minute, I have a duty and obligation to the audience to be able to let us bond together during these tough times and to be able to overcome things, which is just so important to be able to do that. And that's why I decided to do it. And I think this tonight's episode is going to be very, very special. Facebook Nation, I have a different type of guest on that I'll get to in a minute that's different than any of our other 67 previous episodes. With it, he's definitely going to be able to help us through this trying time. I guarantee you that on it. So, but I just want to talk about just a couple things here that have been going on. Starting with the cornerstry here, it's been tough. We've had a general manager and take his own life on Friday evening that worked for a very large dealer group in Virginia that we all know. There's a salesperson that I competed against for many, many years. He worked at a competing Nissan dealership 20 minutes from me for many years, and many times he was on the top of the district. I found out yesterday that he took his own life as well last week. And it's just we're going to talk tonight about the mental health awareness that's just so important that we need. There's been a lot of other things, obviously, the tragedy that happened Sunday with Kobe Bryant and his daughter Gigi and the other 7 members. And that horrific helicopter crash, which is actually there's a video on YouTube of the helicopter going down, which is just it put tears in my eyes when I watched it. Just horrible. And then on top of all that, I found out this morning a friend of mine who's very big on social media, his mom had a heart attack. It goes on and on. There's a technician that works at a dealership half hour. His wife just passed away, who had a battle with breast cancer. It's been really tough. And tonight, I want us to bond together, Facebook. Okay, it's not about ratings. It's not about views. It's about taking the time to be able to really work and have synergy together and be able to help each other heal and move forward and take it to the next level and bond together. Do I have your commitment tonight to do that? Yes or no? Because if you do, I really would appreciate it. Let's get everybody here with that. And before we bring Alex on here with it, this episode tonight is dedicated to Sharon Dotson. Sharon is the mother of our controller. And again, I hate saying that she's a controller because she's so much more than that, Jody Atkins. But, Sharon is Jody's sweet mom who had open heart surgery yesterday. And, it's a little touch and go still. Please keep her in your prayers. But this episode, number 68, is dedicated to Sharon. Sharon, we're all in with you. Jody, we're here for you, sweetheart. We're here and we want to be able to rise together. That's what the AutoMax family is about. And that is what we're about is just in general and the Auto Fam Strong that we're at with it. So please hit the share button with this. I would appreciate it. Our guest tonight is Alex Fitzgerald. Before I bring Alex on, we are continuing with our donations. So a $100 donation will be given to Alex's charity, which is Wounded Warrior Project. So www.woundedwarriorproject.org. I highly recommend that you go there and check it out. And if you feel led by the spirit to donate, please do. But $100 will be donated as that is Alex's charity tonight. The reason why I've asked Alex to come on, because some of you might be thinking, Anthony, hey, this is a car business show. You have all these other car business people on your show. Alex is a poker player. What's he have to do with the car industry? He has everything to do with the car industry. I've been following Alex for a number of years. And, we're an acquaintance, and we haven't had the privilege to meet yet, which is kind of crazy because he's at Atlantic City competing, quite a bit, and he's not too far from where I live. But we haven't been able to sit down yet, him and I. But we've exchanged emails and, and chatted a little bit. And I've been following him for years. I have over 650 of his articles that I have saved in my email. So I'm a big fan of Alex, and it isn't just because he's a professional poker player with over $3.5 million in earnings that he has. He's also a coach, not just a poker coach. Alex is a life coach. And Alex, the reason why I've really taken a liking to him more than a lot of other professional poker players that are all great, the Phil Hellmuth, the Down, the Granus, Jonathan Little, I mean, these people, I've met them. I haven't met Alex yet, but I've met them. But Alex, he leads with his heart. And you guys know how I am, Facebook Nation. And he writes that way. And he really takes personal examples in his life of things he's overcome and be able to does that. So the bottom line is he knows how to win the battle of the mind. And that's why when I messaged Alex this morning, I said, Alex, I really want to talk about the mental health awareness and how important it is. He said, let's do it, was his message back to me, with it. So he's also a multi-time author. He has some amazing books that he has. Again, he's a coach. He's a mentor. His maturity is way beyond his years. And he also is a battle rapper. And maybe we'll have a little fun in the show tonight. Maybe we're going to do a little battle rapping possibly. But without further ado, I'm very privileged and honored to bring on, in my opinion, a celebrity guest who really makes an impact on and off the green felt Facebook Nation. And I proudly present to you Mr. Alex Fitzgerald.
Hey, happy to be here. It's an honor.
It's an honor to have you. It really is. Thank you so much in your amazing, busy, crazy schedule that you have, that you're just everywhere on both coasts, spending time with your significant other, traveling to tournaments in multiple countries, writing articles, doing your coaching, doing your stuff that you're doing with Jonathan Little right now. Everything that you've done, and you're taking time for me. A cash game 1-2-2-5 no limit grinder. So thank you so much for taking the time to do this, Alex. I'm so appreciative of you joining us tonight.
Oh, absolutely. And just so you know, when I play cash, I prefer 2-5 myself. That's where the money is, right? Yep. 25-50 is a lot tougher. So yeah, I'm always hanging out with guys like you.
Yeah, the swings are a little bit harder there, as I'm experiencing a downswing this month in January.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, I'm down 6 buy-ins. I'm down just over 13 big blinds an hour, which is not normal for me.
God.
Yeah, so it's not good. So, but obviously there's variance, and you wrote an article, I think it was 2 weeks ago, about not having poker entitlement, which perked my interest, and I told you before we went live here, I saved every one of your articles. I don't always have a chance to read all of them, but that one I stopped what I was doing when I saw it pop up in my email. I said, I got to read this one, because that's a real life lesson there as well. I think a lot of times we feel there's entitlement in our lives off the green felt also with it. So, which, obviously that's why you're an amazing creative writer that you are, and coach on it. So, but so grateful for what you do for the poker community, and also what you do just for the whole world and community in general.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
Yeah. So let's get started here. I usually don't script these, and I do want to get into the mental health awareness, but let's keep it a little light to start out here. That little boy that grew up right outside Seattle, Washington, little Alex growing up, and I think you're 30, I believe.
32.
32 now? Okay.
Yes,
So that little boy that grew up 32 years ago, with its, why don't you kind of take it from there and give the audience here a little background, since a lot of them don't know who you are. There is a couple poker dealers on here right now that follow me. I saw their names, so they're giving me some support. But like the car industry know who you are too. So why don't you take it from there, Alex?
Sure. I was born in Kodiak, Alaska. My father was a fisherman. My grandfather was a fisherman. I grew up in a fishing family. Mother was a school teacher, and I grew up just outside of Seattle. And yeah, I was just a hyper kid. I always wanted to be doing something. I was trying to write before anybody cared about it, right? When I was 12. And my dad taught me how to play cards when I was younger. And he actually originally taught me gin rummy. He never let me win. He kicked my butt every time. Both of my parents were educated in Texas, so if you hear my accent being a little mixed between West Coast and that's where that's from. I know it's really strange, but yeah, I had a different childhood, but in the end, looking back, I realized my parents gave me some pretty good values. And of course, my dad teaching me how to play cards and being introduced to cards at an early age. Obviously, you wouldn't normally wish that for your child, but it's worked out pretty well for me.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And you spent time, was it in Peru a few years ago you were living in, or not Peru,
Costa Rica. Yeah, no, don't
Costa
worry.
Rica.
Yeah, it's a little country. It's easy to mix up.
Yes, I couldn't remember what country it was, but I
Yeah.
need to spend some time down there. That's when I really started following you a little bit more closer. I mean, I've known who you are for a number of years. Obviously being in the poker community and being out and competing at WSOP out there, which is World Series of Poker Facebook Nation, for those who don't know what that is. With itself. But when you were in Costa Rica writing those articles, that's when I saw it was about 3 years ago, and I was like, wow. I said, this guy really, really gets it, and it's really good stuff, and it's just so much more than poker on it. So you grew up that way. So your dad taught you cards, gin rummy, and obviously the competitive side was there. He made you go out there and earn it. And you've been very you've lived in many different areas in all different places. Like I said, you were born in Alaska, raised in Washington State. You have a little bit of a Texas accent. You're in New York now. You've been in Costa Rica. You spent many tons of time in Las Vegas, tons of times at Borgata, Atlantic City. You've been everywhere that way. How has that helped you, Alex, in your years to form the person you are today, again, on and off the felt?
Oh, that's a really good question. Poker is a game of people, and I think the reason I love it so much is it is about people and understanding people. And I'm sure you can identify, because sales is mostly about relationships. Business is about relationships, maintaining relationships. The worst advice you could give someone heading into business is to be ruthless, I think, sometimes, because a lot of business is just forming relationships and making sure they're satisfactory for both parties. Yeah. And I didn't really, the best way I ever heard it put, ironically, I heard some guy say on the New York subway, you can't learn to swim by reading a book. And there's all these things. I grew up with a lot of really narrow-minded views on certain issues, but after you live in Asia for a year, anything you thought is kind of blown out of your mind because you have the experience. You've met so many people. Now you've lived in Latin America for a year. Now you've lived in Europe for a year. You will eventually get different perceptions that help you realize how the world actually is and accept reality on reality's terms. Sorry, I heard myself back for just a second. But when you get that experience of getting to meet different people on and off the felt, the elderly, people my age, what have you, different ages, race, gender, sexual preference, whatever it is, you start seeing that a lot of people want the exact same things. And be it you're trying to work with that in business or you're trying to maintain relationships with your family, if you know what those things are, it can definitely help you.
Yeah, absolutely. And that well diverse, and it's almost a melting pot that you've experienced that way. And it's been some growing pains as well. I mean, you've written about these things and but it's molded you the person you are today. And you see it that there's all different cultures, age, race, gender, culture, preferences, all these different things. But everyone wants to love and be loved. Everyone wants to feel that acceptance, type of thing. Everyone wants to be a winner, with that. And seeing those different realms I think it's really helped with your writing, in my opinion, because you've been able to attract more of an audience, with that. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. The smartest thing I ever heard about writing was, I believe it was Ryan Holiday said, writers lead interesting lives. And what he meant by that is, if you want to become a writer, which is always what I wanted to be since I was 12 years old. I know that sounds ridiculous given how blessed I've been through poker, but poker was something my dad taught me to do, and I happened to be decent at. It was something I definitely love, and I've worked my ass off at, but my true passion is writing. And I, for years, was a very mediocre writer. And one day I started attracting a following. I was very confused by that. And what I realized was I had led a life that allowed me to communicate with a number of people. Whereas if you just stay in your office all day, not talking to anyone, you can have all the technique in the world. You're not going to be able to communicate with anyone on the page or outside of it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's so pivotal. It's so pivotal to do that. And that's interesting. So you grew up and you always wanted that writing that way. So as a child in school, were you more of an English, more like English versus math? Was that more your
Oh
thing
yeah,
then? Or?
yeah, I'm a terrible math student, which is really strange because I've written math
Okay.
books now.
Yeah.
I went to a junior college in Seattle. I guess they don't call it junior college anymore, but I applied to a junior college in Seattle when I was 19. I was already doing okay with poker at that time. Okay, I was doing really well with poker at the time,
Nice.
and I thought, I'm thinking I'm pretty cool at that moment. I'm 19, I'm full of myself, and I go and take this entrance exam to go to this junior college. And they said I had to go back to ninth grade arithmetic. They said that was how bad my math was. They said, you can't do any of this. But even writing, it was only a couple years ago I got Elements of Style and started studying how to actually write. I was never taught how to diagram sentences or any of that. It's only recently that I've grown an affinity for the grammar and whatnot.
Yeah, but it's funny because I always say that you're either good at English and bad at math, or you're good at math and bad at English,
It's
type of thing.
true. It's true.
It's like the 1% out there, the one outer on the river, which happened to be 3 weeks ago.
Oh, God.
Set over set, and the guy hit his
Oh,
quad sevens
God.
against my set of nines. Yeah, I was just like,
Yeah.
fourth time I've been one out in my life.
Oh, my
So
God.
it's not fun.
Yeah.
With it. So, but it's that 1% good at math and English is where I was going with that on it. So,
Right. No, it's
but
very
but
difficult.
it's difficult. It is, but you have that creativeness, and you've been able to go back and take that and really develop that. With it, and I'm sure I'm 100% confident, Alex, that you get a lot of your students or faithful followers like myself that email you and thank you for the lessons. It isn't just, hey, I had a great session and 1-2 buy-ins. It's the life lessons that are involved there. It's the heart that you pour into your articles. I mean, you love them. You love to write and to give back to people, which is so amazing. It really is.
I appreciate you saying that. It's also it's a passion for the game. I just
Mm-hmm.
it was when I was growing up, my mother and father both just loved paperbacks and were voracious readers. But my dad was very much a sports guy. Sports were always on. When I was playing sports, it was drills constantly. And my mother was more of the artistic side. She had much more of an affinity for books, I guess. And it's so nice to have in poker. Poker is an art and a science. And I really do have a passion for my job is essentially in poker. I feel like I have a head coaching position in the
Mm-hmm.
NFL is what I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
It's very intense every day getting to read the numbers from what's going on at the tables and try to create strategies for normal people. And it's really exciting to be a part of that because I know many people, it's not really their fault, but they work a job that perhaps doesn't excite them as much as they'd like. Whereas when my students are at final tables, it's very exciting because that's
Yeah.
a big deal for me as well. And I still get to play. I still play quite a bit. I'm not as public about it as I used to be because it's not as much tournaments like it used to be because well, obviously in the United States, you can't play on pokerstars.com and whatnot, but it's really fun getting to play, getting to coach, having a stable living from this, getting to live in a great city such as New York City, getting to travel. I just love all of it. And the writing, it's so nice to be able to, every writer really wants an audience. So just to have an audience, I just keep going with it, because there was a long time I was writing, nobody cared. When I first got to Seattle when I was 18, I wrote a novel, and it was just a piece of ass. It was terrible. And then I tried other novels and screenplays, and it just was not working out. And then in poker, it took me a long time to find my way. I had a lot of early success, then I squandered it. And then I found my way eventually, but I wouldn't have found my way if it hadn't been for my students who were giving me a day job while I was still chasing the dream.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And you hit the nail on the head there, Alex. When your students make a final table, where you hear the success stories and how they went on a decent run and they won multiple buy-ins and things on that nature for those that are cash game grinders. It's the same way that I feel as a sales trainer. I mean, I just saw a post right before we went live here, about 10 minutes before we went live. There's a young lady that we were able to get hired up in Raynham, Massachusetts.
Nice.
And she was working at Wendy's. She's working at Wendy's, Alex. And she came in and she was working night shift at Wendy's. Well, not night shift, like till 2 a.m.
But yeah.
And she came to my training class on just a handful of hours of sleep, and we got her hired. She's been there 18 months, and she just won her first Salesperson of the Month award. And on top of it, for that store, she's the first female ever to win the top salesperson at her store ever. So I messaged with her briefly before you and I connected on Facebook here, and I'm going to share it out tomorrow, her post there, because I didn't want that to lose kind of her exposure there with us doing the show here so quickly on it. So, but it's just amazing. So I get the same way, that success story that you feel when you have your students, your candidates, your new hire recruits, your recruits in the felt type of thing. And like you said, that helped you where you had the instant success. And then obviously, as you went through the grind, as any poker player does, and just to give you an idea for the audience here, which is obviously mainly car business, the grind we go through in the car business, Facebook Nation, it's the same thing. There's a reason why I'm a poker player and in the car business. It's that grind, that rejection, the failure. Being card dead's like going 0 for 5 with customers. And not winning a hand for an hour and a half or 2 hours or 3 hours type of thing. And you finally get a hand and you get coolered, which again, in the car industry world, you think you have a deal. Everything's good. The last second, the customer sells you out, goes in the street and buys the Toyota when you're working at a Nissan store. It's the same principle that you go through that, and it's frustrating, but you overcome that and you learn from your students. And this is exactly why I relate to Alex so much, because he gets that, and he's very, very transparent, Facebook Nation, about those things. Alex, you had mentioned about sports, and I know that your first love is baseball, I believe. Is that correct?
Yeah, I love baseball. I watch more baseball than anyone my age. Sorry, go ahead.
Yes. And I'm right with you, because baseball is my first love as well. And I love when you put some of that baseball articles in there and everything to do that. But sports are a big thing, and to be able to use analogies in sports, and when it comes to poker or life lessons or car business lessons, if you will, definitely is a great thing there. So you grew up that way. You said your dad was into sports as well, and you played at one point as well. How did that form you into the person you are today, and the character to help you in the sports, the passion you have for sports? How did that make you into the coach that you are today for players and people?
Oh, that's a really good question. I think when you were talking about the young lady who, by the way, sounds like the boss of all bosses, gets from working the night shift at Wendy's and gets a sales job.
Yeah.
To me, that's just love of the game. Like, you're loving being the trainer in her corner, and she's going out there and going 12 rounds with the champ when it comes to getting out of Wendy's, right?
Yeah.
That is, and I worked at Arby's. I'm not trying to downplay Wendy's. I worked at Arby's for a year, and there's nothing wrong with doing that, but obviously we would love to do better. We would love our children to do as well as they could. And just the love of competition, if you can infuse it, and it sounds like it comes up in sales as well. There can be a good competition, which is if you can teach somebody to sell, that is a key skill in life. Everything is sales, right? And taking that competitive drive to every facet has really helped me. And a lot of that came from my father, because my father really instilled in me, almost, my mother and my father, almost to a painful degree. There was no excuses. If something happened, it was always, how could you have done differently to avoid that? And there was a whole lot of, in looking back, maybe this was not the greatest thing, but I played 10 years of Pee Wee football up until just around the high school level. I stopped being big enough for my position. If you can believe it, I was a left tackle. But
Wow. No
yeah,
kidding.
right. I was a big boy. I was bigger than everybody. I was big. Before my voice dropped in high school, believe it or not, it was really high pitched, and I had acne. But and I was just this big boy, and I loved playing left tackle because nobody notices you unless you mess up, and I just made sure I never messed up. And then I just lost too much weight. At a certain point, I was 150 pounds in high school. At some point, everybody caught up to me. And I just didn't even go out for the high school team. I played up until my freshman year in another league, but that was that. And but I remember my dad, if my leg was hurting and you could still play on it, his whole thing was, your team is relying on you. Are you sure you can't? Right? Walk back and forth for an hour, see how you're going on it. And there was just no excuses ever allowed. And he was a big boxing fan. That's my other great love, is boxing. And just seeing those men push through hell to get to the end and fighting for their families, going out there, it puts in you a passion for life that I feel perhaps we're missing in culture these days, which is not anybody's fault particularly, but we're in such a good time technologically. It would be weird if we didn't find little things to complain about all the time. But because I was just programmed by these two people, my mother and father, to just always, what can you do more? What can you do more? And my dad just having sports on nonstop. I guess it gave me just a passion for the game of life, more than I ever thought possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's the wonderful thing about sports, that the team atmosphere, the competition, growing and then persevering through the injuries, through the battle of the mind, and winning that type of
Yeah,
thing.
yes, sir.
Yeah, and with baseball, obviously being that's your first love and my first love as well, and I learned it from my dad. Also, you need all 25 people on the roster. There,
Yes,
there
you do.
there's nights you need all 25 where you literally got to get the
Mhm.
the starters pitching relief, and you got sometimes starting pitchers are playing left field,
Yeah,
for the National League. I mean, it's just reality, as type of thing. But to be able to really grasp that concept, that teamwork philosophy, and then taking into life. This is why you're a winner, because things haven't been easy for you. I know that much about your personal life, but there's been struggles that you've gone through, and you've overcome them over the last handful of years. With that, and it's that character and that resilience that's been built into you, and now you take that and flip the script and share it back with others through your gift that God's given you of writing, which is just truly remarkable. It really is.
that means a lot to me. Thank you.
With it. So, well, it's a fact, buddy. I mean, it just really is. And again, I mean, I don't know you that well, and again, we've never even met before. Which I'm sure we will at some point. But I mean, I sense it because I read people for a living. And then
Mhm.
you can sense the people that are real. And you said we can spot the bluff at the table and pick the bluff off. We can pick off the people that are fake, as well, and try to attract ourselves to the people that are real.
Mhm.
With that on it, which is really amazing on it. So, Alex, let's shift gears a little bit here. And again, Facebook Nation, please hit the share button and share this out here. Alex Fitzgerald here, professional poker player, $3.5 million in lifetime earnings. He is a poker coach. He is a multi-time author. He has a huge gift for writing. Again, I have literally over 650 articles he's written saved, and I have a whole file for him that just says Alex Fitzgerald that I have on there, and he just really is going to make an impact on your lives tonight. He really, really is. And the other thing that Alex does is he's a battle rapper a little bit, which I'm going to guess and say that some of the audience might not know what that is. Say, Alex, why don't you go into that a little bit if you don't mind?
Battle rap is a lot like if you ever saw the movie 8 Mile. That was a pretty good representation of it maybe 10, 15 years ago. What happens is if you watch that movie, Eminem is actually writing before the battle. So you'll see him on the bus in Detroit writing for an upcoming battle. And what happens is when you're at the actual event, you and another guy take turns making fun of each other through rap. And it actually, if you study it, it goes throughout all of history. Vikings used to say poetry to each other to mock each other. And whoever won got whatever it was, a flask of beer, not a flask of beer, a flask, right? And the Aleutians used to do it and the Arabs used to do it. And it's a storied institution. And it's actually become really big around the world. The biggest battle rap league in the world is in the Philippines. The United Kingdom has a huge battle rap league. The United States has many battle rap leagues. And I used to do it just goofing off growing up. And then at a certain point, I did it more seriously, which was, it was my buddies and we would agree on a set date. We would show up at a set time and place, and you each got 3 rounds of 3 minutes. Most of it, there's a perception that it is all freestyle. It's all off the top of the head. That's not true. 99% of it is written ahead of time.
Mm-hmm.
You can freestyle. I tend to not be very good at it, but there are guys who are extremely good at it. One rapper, the Saurus, actually is a professional poker player, and he's a fantastic freestyler. You can look him up if you want to see the art at the highest form. But yeah, I did a goofing off, and I haven't done it in a while just because I've been really busy, but it was a lot of fun. I battled at a boxing gym. I battled at a beach bar. I battled at a church one time.
In Mexico, I believe, Pittsburgh, if I remember correctly.
I was in Pittsburgh one time. I was in it was like Little Mexico in Dallas. So that was I was the white rapper there, and I'm essentially the one white guy in a room of 350 people, which it's really hard to. Of course, I was bringing up it. If you ever watch rap battles, they're pretty vicious, right? But obviously, you have to play to the crowd to a certain extent. So I had to very delicately make fun of my opponent, who was a Mexican national in a room that was very largely Mexican nationals. But I think I found a way around it, and then I gave up the battle at the end. He smoked me. That's the only time I've ever lost.
Well, I mean, I've watched some of this that you have, and it has been a little while, but I've watched some of your videos that way, and it's been really phenomenal. And obviously, it's all in fun. So if anyone's thinking, oh, there's no prejudice here, it's all in jest to have a good time is what it's about on it. So can I put you on the spot? Can you do a little bit?
I'm not gonna do it right now. No.
Not even 3 lines, maybe just like 3 lines.
No, sir. It's you got to be in the mode for it. It's also really loud. I don't know if you want that. So yeah,
I'm okay with that. You can say whatever you want on here.
I literally couldn't. I'm not good at it like that. It's been a little while, honestly. Sorry.
That's okay. Well, now, do you see how I asked you that? Because my poker read was you're going to tell me no. That's why I didn't come out there. That's why I was a little hesitant in the way I asked. My read was I had a read on you.
No, you're right. I mean, the thing about it is a lot of guys you see at a block party and they record it with little camcorders and stuff like that. And if you guys do want to see it, probably my best battle, if you want to look it up, is Assassinato versus 1C Slim, which was one I did at like a backyard block party, which was just awesome because people were standing on the houses nearby on the roof to watch it. So just everywhere you looked, there was a crowd. And that was probably the best I ever did. But a lot of guys do it for fun. It's not their day job. And we're not really good off the top of the head, right? And
You're just preparing stuff, and there's
yeah,
nothing
you're
wrong with that. I
prepared.
mean,
Yeah,
right.
you can see in that battle too. Him and I are clearly buddies, right? Like at one point
Yeah,
we're laughing with each other, but I was friends with everybody I battled for the most
right.
part, right?
It's just another way of having a good time with your friends, and it's almost like a roast,
It's
type of thing that you have,
exactly. It's a big
so
party. Yeah.
yeah, which is really exciting that way.
Mhm.
Alex, let's talk about the assassinato, which obviously that's your hashtag, and I don't know if you know my hashtag. My hashtag is go all in, which
It's a
obviously is
good one.
poker flavored, but that's what I've been going by for even when I was still selling cars full time before I became a trainer.
Mhm.
My last year and a half selling cars, it was go all in, and I've turned that, and everyone knows now. If you say go all in across Facebook Nation, they know it's Anthony Santangelo, type of thing on it. So yours is the Assassinato. Why don't you talk about that a little bit, how that came about?
Uh, well, my father lives in Brazil now, and when I was down there when he was getting married, remarried, I heard the word assassinato on the TV, and I thought, wow, that's a really neat word. That's a scary word. That sounds like what it is. And I came to find out they were talking about murder. That was it was it was something about a homicide on TV, and I said, okay. So I went home, and I was then later. I'm a teenager, and I'm making my first uh, poker sign in. I thought, okay, I want to be scary because I'm 17, right? So I put Assassinato, not knowing that was going to be my moniker for my whole life. And as you can see from my actual disposition, I'm not scary at all. And I've actually found out Assassinato in Italian means I killed myself, which is not what I meant by that. And
Mhm.
if you saw that name and you were Italian, you'd think like, what is wrong with this person? And the good thing about it, I guess, is that people tend to remember it. The weird thing about it is I'm in my 30s now, and as I'm sure everybody watching this can notice, I'm pretty unassuming as a person, and it's really weird to have people go, "Oh, you're Assassinato," right? And it's like, yeah, that's what I named myself when I was young. And then after they got rid of my account when I was underage and I was 18, I had to make a new account as a joke between my buddies and I said, watch, I'm going to be the Assassinato now. Right. And just because I had to change my name. And of course, that is just the most pretentious name in the world. Right. It was a gag when I was 18. I'm 32
Mhm.
now. And it's so funny to hear, oh, the Assassinato. It's like, yes, that was the name.
It's pretty interesting, but obviously it's been part of your personality a
Yeah.
little bit, and it's not about what it means in Italian, but it's just more. See, for me, when I think of that, just and the knowledge I have of you is you're fearless. You're fearless. You know how to. You have no problem playing any hand out of position. And for the audience that doesn't understand what that means is anything that's a struggle, Alex is willing to put himself out there and put his neck on the line. That's how he is as a person, how he is as a man, how he is as a significant other, and how he is as a coach and an author, as a poker player, as well, which is remarkable. Alex, what's some of the advice you could give to Facebook Nation about that four-letter F word, fear? That fear that you have, whether it's a combination of being afraid to play ace queen offsuit in the small blind, or being afraid to speak your mind and speak from the heart with someone at the deepest, most intimate level, and anything in between those two things. What's some advice you better give to help them overcome that fear?
Whew, I don't know how much time you have, but I've thought about this a lot. Well, the best teacher ever about fear was a gentleman by the name of Cus Tomato, who
Mhm.
was a boxing trainer who had two heavyweight champions. And he had two heavyweight champions back when, in all of sport, there was no greater human being on earth than the heavyweight champion. Though that gentleman was making the equivalent of hundreds of millions of dollars, he was treated like royalty when he would go to Europe. And one of those heavyweight champions, I'm sure everybody here has heard of, goes by the name of Mike Tyson. Sadly, Mike Tyson flamed out pretty bad after Custom Auto passed. But the way he created those heavyweight champions is he told them the only difference between a coward and a hero is how they deal with fear. Every single person has fear. It's how you can channel it to do your job that will save you. And one of the things he would do is he would tell his heavyweight champions, when you show up to the ring, the guy is going to look 10 feet tall. He is going to look like the scariest person you've ever seen in your life. You're going to think there is no chance you're going to win this match. And you're still going to go out there and do exactly what I told you to do. He would prepare them for it. He would know. And he'd said, at some point in the 6th or 7th round, you're going to be tired and you think it's going to be over and you're going to be afraid that it's over. You need to know that's just a passing phase. It's not true. You can keep going. And this guy who had no experience in boxing produced 2 heavyweight champions when there were literally probably tens of thousands of trainers trying to produce the exact same thing at the exact same time, because he developed their relationship with fear. Fear can often point the way. If you're afraid of something, that can teach you that's what I need to do. That is what I should be chasing. If you feel, say, you've always wanted to sing, but you're very scared about going in front of a crowd, the way you could think of that is anxiety feels very close to excitement. You can be very anxious about that. And if you tell yourself, I'm just jacked up because I'm doing something I know I need to do. And once I get on the other side of this wall, I'm going to know so much more about myself that I never knew before. And don't you want to experience yourself in that fashion just once? Don't you want to know what that feels like? Because right now it's a mystery. We can't land on the moon. We can know what life is like if we face our fears. And everybody deals with this. Every single person deals with that. It's funny, you called me fearless. I actually think I deal with fear on a daily basis. Jackie Chan wrote in his book, this is a man who has literally broken every bone in his body because of all the stunts he did. He says before every single one of his stunts, he is terrified. That is a man who rewrote how action movies are made because of his willingness to put his body on the line. He says, I'm terrified every single time. Barbara Streisand had tremendous issues with performance anxiety and still pushed through it. The worst thing that can happen, I can tell you, there was a time in poker I was extremely afraid when I got deep in tournaments. And then there came a time where I wasn't feeling anxiety anymore, but I wasn't alert anymore. It all became old hat. It was all numb. Yeah, exactly. I was numb. And that's not good, because now you have no idea what you're supposed to be looking for. You're not as focused as you used to be. And then I started, raising the stakes a little bit. Like, what does this mean to you? Why do you want it? Right. And then I felt that fear again, but it wasn't really fear. It was excitement. Anxiety and excitement are two sides of the same coin. And you want to feel that, because if you think about it, if you just sit and do nothing every single day, whatever that is, I'm sure the people at, no offense, but I'm sure the people at the DMV don't have many fears, but do they like that? Is that really the highest calling in their life?
Yes.
Yeah, or hopefully at night they're doing something else, or they have another passion, or they like woodworking or something. There's something that makes them go, God, I wonder if I can do that, and feel something that might be akin to fear, but might actually be an indicator as to what way to go. And if we follow those signals, that really can lead to an exciting life. There was no one who thought I could play poker professionally reasonably when I was in high school. I was, I wasn't really good academically. I wasn't good in sports or anything. And I was scared in that just nobody thought I could do this, but it was exciting too. Just that, God, this is this lawless place that anywhere anyone can go. And yeah,
Mhm.
I was scared to write my first books because I'd written other books that just had been trashed. But I pushed myself through it. And now I have this other income stream, just being able to educate players. But every single person deals with fear, and it can be the indicator as to where you need to go.
Absolutely. Very, very well said. Very well said. As you were doing that, I found part of an article that you've written, and this was one about 3 weeks ago, and I saved it because I was waiting for the show here. So I'm just going to read it to Facebook Nation here, and this is I'm quoting Alex, and I'm reading this here Facebook. I believe a man is a professional when he can do what needs to be done, no matter how he feels within. An amateur is an amateur in his attitude emotionally. A professional is a professional in the way he thinks and feels, and in his ability to execute under the most trying conditions. You must understand fear so you can manipulate it. Fear is like fire. You can make it work for you. It can warm you in winter, cook your food when you're hungry, give you light when you're in the dark, and produce energy. Let it go out of control and it can hurt you, even kill you. Fear is a friend of exceptional people. That's just a small sample of the master that Alex is in his writing.
That was Customato. That's me quoting Customato. God, I felt
That's,
so terrible as you were reading it, but
that's
those are
Customano.
that is
Well, I mean,
Customato.
that's important stuff right there, though. But I mean,
I,
but you
I
you write just as good as Customano. You
I
absolutely will.
appreciate that. He was, wasn't he a legend? Isn't that amazing? I read that. I have friends. I know this. Okay, this sounds strange. I'm a big fan of theater and the arts and music and stuff like that. I spend a lot of time
Mhm.
around that. I love that in New York. I have many friends who are fantastic at that, but they have terrible stage fright. I sent them that quote, that Customato quote, and they all went, "Oh my God, I didn't know." The thing that I think ruins a lot of people is they feel ashamed of being afraid. They go, "Well, look
Yeah.
at the king jock in my high school. He was never afraid." And it's like, yeah, that's one guy. Like everybody else gets afraid at some point. I'll bet you when that guy went to go play in college, he started getting scared because he realized he couldn't rest on his laurels anymore. Every single person gets scared. That can mean you're jacked up, ready to go. There's a real thing called anxiety reappraisal. Look it up. It comes up in I believe Mel Robbins discussed it in the 5-second rule. It's you can tell yourself, I'm excited. I'm excited. I'm actually excited. I'm not anxious. And there's a lot of evidence that your body responds to that kind of stress much more differently and goes, I guess I am excited. Okay, what are we doing? And you can get yourself to do the things you need to do if you tell yourself that.
Absolutely. There's so many life lessons that are involved in there. It absolutely is. And you're absolutely right. People are ashamed to be feared because we're taught to hold everything in. And that brings me into the last segment here I want to talk about. And again, please, Facebook Nation, share this out. I have Alex Fitzgerald with me here. He's not just a professional poker player that's won $3.5 million in tournament earnings. He's a poker coach. He's an author. He's a mentor. He's many life lessons you will learn from this man. You absolutely will. Pay no attention to his age. He is beyond mature. His maturity goes 3 times his age. He absolutely does with it. So, I talked at the start of the show about how this has been a difficult week in the car industry. We have a thing in the car industry, Alex, we call it Auto Fam Strong. We talk about in our auto family, we bond together in the car business. And there's 2 members of the auto family that took their lives last week with it. So the mental health awareness with that and with fear, I don't know you at the deepest level, but I know you definitely have some thoughts on that and some coaching and counseling you can give for people out there right now that are struggling. And again, I had a salesperson that follows me on social media. He private messaged me last night and asked me for my time and asked if he can call me. So I said, yeah, call me. And he had said to me he was thinking of driving into a pole. He had told me literally. And I talked to him off the ledge. We talked for an hour and 15 minutes on the phone last night. to help him get to be the best version of himself. So these things happen whether if you're in the car business or on the poker table. We're not as good as we think we are. We're not as bad as we think we are. Type of things. We go through struggles, divorces, broken relationships, loved ones that are going through surgery right now. All these different things. Alex, give us some of that wonderful counsel and wisdom on this that you can help the audience here.
Sure. And just a caveat emptor, everybody. I really appreciate all the kind things that are being said about me tonight. But I'm just a card player. I'm very lucky to have the pupils I have and to be able to help people. But I'm just a collector of ideas. This tends to be what helps my students when they're depressed. And all I have to go off of is that. It's a small sample, hundreds, but it seems to repeat itself again and again. The most interesting work I've read about depression, if we're going to talk about the sad fact that so many people take their lives, there's a book called iGen, and it's by the woman who I believe coined the term millennials. And she is discussing what is going on with the generation that is coming after the millennials. And the thing that is very interesting about them is their depression and suicide rates are going up. And she tries to drive into why she believes that is. And something they found that was extremely interesting was they did this test. Don't quote me on this, but I think what they did is one group was a control group they did nothing with. One group they made check their cell phone every 5 minutes for some reason, right? Just look at your cell phone, look at your cell phone, look at your cell phone. Get on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, all that stuff, just nonstop, not for a certain period of time during the day, just nonstop. And then another group they made read physical books and just take time away from the technology. The people who were made to just be on technology nonstop all day reported feeling far more depressed, far more anxious. And the people who were reading physical books reported feeling much, much better. Now, the other thing that seems to really help people with mood is any form of exercise, any form of moving around. So what I do with my students is I highly recommend walking outside for like an hour every night, listening to an audiobook, because it's a form of exercise that anybody can do. And if you can run while you do it, it's great too. But if you can just start walking, that's fantastic. I'm pretty sure anybody listening to this can walk. Every time I've had a guy that tells me I'm really depressed, I'm down. And the thing about poker, for those who don't follow poker or haven't played poker professionally, sometimes a guy can be on the top of the world for years and that just have a year where he's losing hundreds of thousands of dollars. And that's obviously very terrifying if the guy has a wife, kids, a mortgage, etc. The way you get the guy on track is he needs time away from the technology. He needs time, and this goes for the ladies as well, time to themselves, just to be okay and with themselves and to check in with themselves. How am I feeling? And the audiobooks seem to really help my students, because if you're depressed, sometimes it can be hard to read a physical book. Maybe your mind keeps wandering. But the thing about an audiobook, pick a topic you just love that's like a guilty pleasure, and just go with it and go for a walk. If you got a dog, walk with the dog. That's fantastic. If you the other thing that's really interesting to me that's really helped them, if you got a friend who lives nearby, just get a football and throw it back and forth. Get a baseball and get your mitts and throw it back and forth. The interesting thing, when that ball is in the air, you can't think about your day. You can't think about what's stressing you. It's in the air. You got to focus on where it is. And it's the fastest way to get in that Zen contemplation without having to. It's very hard for a lot of people to meditate, right? That's a very difficult thing to start with. But everybody can throw a ball back and forth. And I have thoughts on this for days. Just a couple last points. I think a lot of the problem men are experiencing right now is problems with testosterone. There's a big deal that, I mean, if you watch sports now, half the ads are for testosterone supplements or, Roman ED supplements and things like that. And it's not, I think what that is if you put a dog in a room all day, the dog is going to be very uncomfortable. A lot of people, I heard one trainer, God forgive me, I can't remember his name, but one trainer described it that way. And he said, how would your dog be doing if I locked it in your office for 10 hours a day? Well, the dog wouldn't be doing that well, right? But, excuse me. But I think with men especially, our testosterone can dip a little bit, and that's when we feel really bad. So something we can do is fire it up with just a right diet. There's a fantastic book called The Hacking of the American Mind, which will discuss why those glycemic spikes that you get from grains and sugar can be really bad for you long term. And just exercise of any sort. Well, it truthfully, weight training is what's going to fire up your testosterone the fastest, and that can help you feeling a lot better. But just socialization in any matter, right diet. Every time I've applied that with my students, it's really worked well. And I believe there's a book, if you really want to get to this, there's a book called The Depression Cure, I believe is what it's called. It's referenced in the book iGen, and you'll have to forgive me. I got the cliff notes from the book, and I was using them myself, but it talks a lot about diet and exercise and just being able to relate and being able to get yourself outside for an hour and be able to relate with yourself again. Because when you're just going nonstop all day, never stop inside of an office, just like your dog would go a little crazy if it was sequestered all that time, everybody watching this naturally would get a little crazy, and that's not their fault. What is our responsibility though, is to give ourselves at least an hour every day to check in with ourselves right now, because our parents used to have that time waiting for the oil to get changed, waiting for a doctor. They had a lot of time to be bored, be in their own head, meditate, drift away. We don't have that anymore, because in every one of our pockets, every one of us has a phone that has more power in it than the president of the United States had back in 1975. And it is nonstop information all the time. Humans naturally worry about ostracism, being accepted, and we just get to see every group in the entire world, and would they be accepting of us? What would they think of us? What does this person look like? What is this person doing better than us? And that naturally can get us just out of our minds. That is everything I just discussed. And obviously I wish I had more time to discuss this, but those things, just take time to throw a ball back and forth. Walking with a friend is fantastic. Walking with your spouse is fantastic. There's a primitive thing where you're walking in the same direction, breathing clean air, talking as you go in the same direction, practicing mindfulness, even if it's just throwing a ball back and forth, simulating conversation around the campfire with an audiobook, right? Getting away from the screens. That seems to do the job a lot of the time. And check out that book, The Depression Cure, as well. And fish oil is another thing. Molecularly distilled fish oil. It actually really helps people, because we're primed a little bit more for omega-3s versus omega-6s. Take that right before bed. Freeze it in the freezer. Otherwise, you're going to get the fish burps. And just take it right before bed. That'll help a little bit too. That's a nice natural thing you can do if you don't want to take the meds.
Yeah, absolutely. That's some wonderful advice you have there, Alex. All of it, I think all those different best practices that you gave the audience there, which I'm very appreciative of, it all comes down to winning the battle of the mind.
Yes,
So
sir.
you're going to win the battle of the mind. That's what it's about. Are you willing to win the battle of the mind when you're going through a difficult time professionally,
Mm-hmm.
when you lose your job, when everything you touch doesn't turn to sold, when you're card dead and you go on a downswing playing poker, when you're going through relationship issues, when you're going through people that you love so much and they're hurting and there's difficulties in their life because of different physical ailments, and you're scared for them. Whatever it may be, all those different things. Are you willing to take that next 15 minutes and win the next 15 minutes and win the battle of the mind? And that's what it comes down to. A positive mindset equals positive results. Go all in, which is one of my quotes that I teach in my training classes for AutoMax, to be able to understand that, which is wonderful things there. Alex, thank you so much for taking the time. Alex, how can people reach you? I know you had something that you wanted to discuss with the audience there that you had. How can they reach you? And what was that thing that you wanted to talk about?
Oh, sure. If you guys enjoyed hearing me talk, little old me talk today, I do have a mailing list. The one that had sent out 600 articles over the past 2 years. But if you want to sign up for that mailing list, just go to www.pokerheadrush.com. That URL again is www.pokerheadrush.com. Just sign up. And if you're interested about learning about poker, there's a free training pack that comes when you sign up for that. It's absolutely free, and you'll get articles from myself every single day. I try to always put something free in every single email, even if there is a sales email, which I try to not do that often. There will be an article or a video or something that can help you with your poker game. And sometimes my students have been kind enough to allow me the luxury to write about life. So you'll see some articles about that as well. If you would sign up for that, I would be overjoyed to have you. I'm really grateful to have my audience, and thank you for tuning in tonight.
Absolutely. I'm putting it right in here now. www.pokerheadrush.com.
Yes, sir.
Yep. I put that right in the comments there, Alex. I highly recommend all of you to do that. Again, it's not a money thing. Alex just wants to be able to help you with that. And again, I highly recommend it, Facebook Nation. He's helped me, not just on the felt, but off the felt, because I read the articles and I see that information, and now I take it and helps me be a better man, a better trainer, and now I can go out and impact the lives of others through knowledge that Alex has taught me. And I highly recommend, again, take the time and sign up. Again, he's not looking to charge you for things. You don't have to be a poker player for it. There is life lessons in his writings. Trust me on that, Facebook Nation. You know how I'm about. You know how real I am on it. So, Alex, thank you so much for taking the time. Please thank your significant other for taking an hour away from time with her as well. I'm so appreciative. I can't wait to be able to at some point try to meet you next time you're down at Borgata or something like that. And if I'm not traveling, because I'm in hotels over 200 nights a year all across North America, type of thing. But I definitely would love to be able to sit down with you at some point. And again, I'm so appreciative. I learned so much tonight, personally and professionally. And again, your maturity is just beyond your years. It really is, buddy. It really is.
Thank you. It was an honor to be on.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, my friend. Well, there you have it, Facebook Nation. Another episode complete of Did You Hire Him Dead or Kill Him After You Got Him, episode number 68. Again, let's find a way to bond the other, Facebook Nation. Again, there's been difficulties in this world, difficulties in the corner street. There's struggles, there's fears going through. Let's bond together. Let's find a way to do that and overcome our fears. Win the battle of the mind. Take the advice that Alex has given you tonight. Read these different books, and find a way to be able to overcome your fear. Embrace your fear. Don't be ashamed of it, but embrace it. And find a way in real life to be willing to push your chips in the middle and go all in. And you know what? When you get felt it and things don't work out, get back off the mat. As Mickey would say to Rocky in the Rocky Balboa movies, get up, you son of a bitch, because Mickey loves you. Go out there and do that, because you know why? I love you. I care about you. That's what this show's about. Yes, it's about the car industry and about training and recruiting, but you know what? There's life lessons here as well, and that's what it is. So go out there and don't be afraid to tell someone I love you. As the Stevie Wonder song says, I just called to say I love you. Be willing to do that. You can still be cool and do that, and I'm telling you, it'll make a huge impact on the lives of others if you're willing to swallow your ego and overcome your fears. Until next time, I will talk to you soon. As always, my faithful Facebook followers, go all in.